I just got an announcement, recording in progress.
Me too. Seems it's working. Great. So thank you again very much, Dave, for being here and being willing to share your experience with me today. Thank you very much.
Glad to do it, Maria.
Yes. Yeah. So to start us off, would you please tell me a little bit about your story or your relationship with diabetes type 2 and your name, and just so that we can locate you in the world?
Sure. Well, Maria, I'm 66 years old. My name is David Dobbins. I've had type 2 diabetes as a diagnosis since 1995, I think. And it was flagged in a normal physical. The blood work for my physical showed that I had fasting high blood sugar. So I was immediately referred by my physician at that time to an endocrinologist. And from that point forward, there was a lot of focus on managing the diabetes with diet and exercise. And that worked for a good amount of time. I can't tell exactly how long, but then metformin was introduced into my regime, and increasing amounts of metformin as time went on. And more recently, my physician and endocrinologist have my physician introduced Farxiga as an additional medication that flushes sugars out through the kidneys, encourages that. And in addition to the metformin. And then more recently, Actos, is that what it's called, I think? And that transition, the more recent transition, has been helped by a Diabetes Predict evaluation, having the DNA test through Diabetes Predict. And that, with your consultation, has led to my physician and endocrinologist being reassured about the process steps in terms of introducing new medications to my life, and being aware of how they might fit my profile as opposed to other medications that might be chosen. So.
Thank you for that, Dave. So would you tell me, please, what kind of information you received through this Diabetes Predict test? What kind of information, what kind of experience you had first with the information that you received from the test?
Well, I was fascinated that the test even existed, and I was introduced to that through you at an event that we attended together. And I was immediately curious about what it could yield in terms of information and how it would be integrated into my plan of care. And I've come to know that most often this tool is used to help people who are not yet diabetic anticipate that they may become that. And what you and I saw in my test was that I would not have been flagged, apparently, as a potential diabetic through the test. But I was taking it as diabetic. And so then the test began to tease out certain areas of my physiology that were participating in my inability to process glucose well, certain areas that could be helped, or certain medications that might help to allow my system to be less resistant, and certain medications that might help my system to be more productive of insulin. So that is how it began to fold into my life. And so it's been an interesting journey, because it's always been a puzzle with my physician and endocrinologist why I'm diabetic. You know, I don't look like the typical type 2 diabetic. I'm not type 1. I've always been this sort of hybrid diabetic, and they've been puzzled by that because a lot of the care that's available for diabetes focuses on the extreme cases, particularly in type 2. Like my A1C has never been above 7, and the endocrinologists in my area reserve their attention for people who have A1Cs above 7. Typically, A1C of 10 or higher gets the attention of an endocrinologist in our area. So my interest in keeping my A1C low, or lower, having it go lower, and maintaining my health has been helped through the Diabetes Predict information and through a cardiologist who's very interested in making sure my blood pressure and cholesterol are all, you know, as low as possible, and that other stressors on my body are that can be attended to are attended to. So in addition to exercise, diet, and keeping my weight, you know, and musculature healthy, there's other systemic variables that are attended to, and those that can be helped and being helped with medication. And that, you know, and that includes twice yearly eye checkups and glucose, glaucoma monitoring, and all sorts of things like that. So vulnerabilities.
Yes. I hear your depth and your awareness about your own process in your how you are managing and how you are relating to this condition. Yeah. In terms
I
of
think my curiosity, you know, a natural curiosity about what's going on, and also interacting with people like you who are curious themselves about how it is that someone with my particular descriptors has the challenge that I have. So it doesn't discourage me that that's the response. It interests me, and I'm like learning as much as I can about what's really going on, accepting that it's mysterious. So
yeah, it's mysterious. I remember I go back to when we started, you and I, talking about this, and how immediate your response was in terms of, okay, what do I do? Or you were right there. Hesitation, or my perception was with no hesitation in terms of, I want to know, or what do I do? That readiness to discover more, and that's very refreshing. I don't personally find that curiosity very frequently, which is very great. And in terms of, did you find the test easy to do? How was that? Was it easy to perform, to take your sample? The logistics of it, was it an easy test to perform for you?
Oh yeah, it was very easy. I think you what I recall is it was introduced to my primary care physician as something that could be prescribed. He worked with the organization to find out the protocols for executing the test, and that was interpreted to the lab local to us, and it was processed through my local hospital lab. So it was all very smooth in my experience, and you know, not complicated at all. I'm used to doing blood tests every 6 months, and this was an additional one, and it was easy to do. And the test report was concise and well presented, and but then it was like having your sophisticated understanding of what the report was actually talking to, in the context of like there isn't a clear flag that I'm going to be a diabetic from what we saw, but then looking at the nuances of it and thinking through, well, what does that imply. Like it seemed clear from the report, as I recall, that potassium would be a help in terms of making my body more insulin sensitive, and or freeing I guess freeing insulin into my system, having it released into my system. And so that created a dietary change that otherwise might not have taken place. So.
Yes. Yes. As you and I have talked about before, I found your phenotype quite unique and particular, knowing a bit about your lifestyle and how you've been managing this condition for years, and also knowing the impeccability in which you show up for your life. I found that your phenotype was unique. I got very curious about what your genetic profile might show us.
Right.
And I was somewhat surprised because my mind had already started to go in a particular direction, that you might have very specific genetic polymorphisms in your DNA, and then your test showed us something different, right? Which continues to the thread that you were mentioning before about the mystery, right? The mystery
of it. Yeah.
of you. Yes, yes. What I have a few more questions. Just a couple more. Yeah. Did you enjoy, or what did you think about them when we talked about your results, the one-on-one, and then I never got to talk directly to Joel, to your doctor. With him, it was more through you and through written communication. Did you find any value or support in that aspect of the relationship, the part in which we talked, you and I, about your results?
Yeah, I felt a great deal of personal support in having you available to talk through the results. What was difficult and surprising was that this information is not more readily integrated into treatment plans already in the United States. That I understand through you, it's rare to find endocrinologists who integrate this testing into their treatment plans. And I found that living in New England, that you could not identify anyone that actually is doing this as an active thing, which was really shocking to me, because it seems that it's such a natural and important part of information in this day and age. That DNA testing is done for many different conditions and is integrated in treatment planning. And why that isn't the case is bewildering to me. And ultimately, my physician and endocrinologist were both helped through your perspective in terms of interpreting the data, but neither of them has been trained to interpret the data and to integrate it into their treatment planning. And there isn't support widely for them doing that. There isn't a culture of support for integrating this yet into treatment planning. And that's bewildering and frustrating for me, because it seems like this is a really important tool and very helpful in pinpointing, in my case, what medications might be more effective than others in terms of working with my ongoing A1C challenges. So and ultimately my physician was responsive to what you wrote and appreciative of what you wrote that you made available to him, and reassured that we were on a path that might be truly the most constructive one in terms of dealing at this phase of the evolution of my diabetes. So I just hope for the future that more people are aware of this tool as an instrument, not only for predicting whether diabetes could be in their future, but if they had diabetes, having this tool be part of the conversation with their endocrinologist in terms of how best to approach their life with diabetes. I think endocrinologists need all the help they can get. I know that I do, and I was really glad that this tool was available to me and to my physicians, even though they weren't prepared to integrate it. I think that the next pass, my primary care physician would be prepared to integrate it because he sees the value of it in a way that he didn't before. But I don't know how it becomes more mainstreamed. It seems like this is a huge problem in the United States. We have a culture that is producing a lot of diabetics, and anything that can be in the toolbox for endocrinologists and for people with diabetes, I think is to be valued and appreciated. So this is a great tool as far as I can tell, and I think it should be more widely known and used.
Yeah, thank you for. I hear your appreciation. Yes, I forget, Dave. Do you have in your family in history of diabetes type 2?
Not clearly, no. And yet, all three of my three of my parents' children have high fasting blood sugar. My two brothers and I. My sister does not, but my two brothers and I. And one thing that's in the back of my mind as part of this mystery is that my brothers and I were both bottle fed as children. And there is a causal link apparently between baby formula of the 50s and 60s, which is my era, and the onset of type 1 and type 2 diabetes later in life. So I don't know whether that is an explanation. It may be that my mother's father, my grandfather, was diabetic, but he was also alcoholic and he died at a very young age. We don't know what was happening clearly in terms of his life. And again, my mother's brother was alcoholic and had glaucoma and could have had diabetes, undiagnosed, untreated. So we just don't know clearly what is in the family system. But neither of my parents were ever diagnosed with diabetes, and I wasn't predicted to develop diabetes. And yet, as I say, both of my brothers were twins, and I have, I guess we would say, type 2 diabetes. My brothers are both being maintained with metformin.
I see.
Yeah.
I hear you're pointing to a very interesting event or phenomenon, what happens with the feeding of the baby, right? And even before intrautero, but the feeding aspect that you are pointing to, the formula, and what happens during the first year of this new organism and how the blueprint of the metabolic pathways get in motion. So the combination of, the presence of the DNA that we come with, and then how is that interplaying with the environment in those very early stages of life? Yeah.
It's a mystery to me, but it's something that I hold as a mystery, and I wonder. It leaves me wondering, because the infant formula is not subject to the same sort of scrutiny is not treated as a medicine. It's treated as food, and so it has a whole different set of parameters with regard to what makes for safe food versus medication for an infant. And it's a curiosity for me. I don't know. I can't tell for sure it's causal, but I think that it's significant that all three of us have developed type 2 diabetes when there isn't a clear antecedent in our family history. So.
What that is making me think of is, probably what I am going to be talking about with this, which is, how in the first year of life and early, right, in infancy, the environment is shaping our egoic structures psychologically
Mhm.
at the level very much so of the physical body, as you know, especially these days, right? As part of the formula in this case, right? Through that entry point, the formula that the baby is being fed, creating that very essential physical structure pathway, right?
Yeah.
You know, you and I work a lot with liberation, right, from the egoic structures, psychological.
Mhm.
Now more with the body, and I'm thinking now at that very primordial stage,
Yeah.
last year of life in a baby, how this formula, perhaps the feeding through this formulation, is impacting and creating that yet another structure through which then energy in that life form, in that body is going to be forming, yeah, for the rest of the life.
Well, and then there was a cultural predisposition for being heavily processed and sugared foods in early life. I mean, I was a Captain Crunch addict, you know. I had a lot I don't know if Captain Crunch was part of your childhood, but it's a very sugary, crunchy cereal. Cinnamon sugared toast. I mean, it was everything of my childhood was sugar based.
A lot of
Yeah, and so you wouldn't do that now. It's not culturally well, it's still very current, but I guess my family system is much more alert now to the dangers of bringing children up on Wonder Bread and sugared cereals. So it's, you know, and fruit juices. So, but that was it was a heavy glucose load on my early life, and it was embraced as being part of what the American diet prescribed. And I think it's to be questioned how that impacts, as you say, the pathways and what our bodies do in response to that sort of load.
yes,
Um,
starting early on, right, with that high levels of sugar, glucose in the body, and asking your pancreas to work a lot, a lot of effort in
yeah,
from the perspective of insulin production and such. Yeah,
yeah.
interesting.
So I think there's a lot more to learn. Yeah. So
Go ahead.
I
What
just think there's a lot more to learn. It's again part of the unfolding mystery of it, and you know, making these connections. Um, I don't know that a lot of research has been done into the consequence of infant formula of the 50s and 60s on type 1 and type 2 diabetes emerging later in life. I don't know how you would do that, how those corollaries could be made. So it just remains as a suspicion for me. I mean, I found one article about it, but they weren't able to draw the lines close together. It's again in the level of suspicion or
Yeah,
intuition.
going there. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Well, this is very helpful, Dave. Thank you so much. I don't want to take more of your time.
Oh, Maria, thank you so much for engaging me at this level. I mean, your personal support and presence in my life means a lot and on many levels, but it's been really helpful with regard to this test and interpreting it and helping me to address what otherwise would be an anxiety-provoking situation. I mean, there's still anxiety that lingers around this. It's like something ticking in the background all the time, which can lead to a sort of an anxious awareness. But largely, I feel that I'm in a field of support with people like you who are very kind and attentive and interested. So that's very reassuring and relaxing as I go on. So.
Well, thank you. We could, in 3 months, when you've been on your new medication, Actos, for 3 months, I would love to know if you do a blood test and follow up with your doctor, what the results will be, and see what's happening inside.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll be connecting, but in January, that'll be a real possibility around the blood test. So
Great.
Good.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you, Maria. It's always good to be with you.
Very good to be with you. Bye.
Bye.